Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents AI Narratives, A History of Imaginative Thinking About Intelligent Machines, by Stephen Cave, Kanta Dihal, and Sarah Dillon, narrated by P.J. Ochlan. Publisher's Note: in this audio edition, you may hear references to figures and tables present in the print and ebook formats of the book. Introduction. Imagining AI. Stephen Cave, Kanta Dihal, and Sarah Dillon. I mean, those parables, or whatever they are, maybe they mean a lot to you, but, 0.1. AI Narratives. In 1985, David Pringle included John Sladek's Roderick, the story of a robot who wanders across a near-future America, in his list of the 100 best science fiction novels. Pringle declares the novel and its sequel, Roderick at Random, a treatise on the whole theme of mechanical men, homunculi, automatons, and machine intelligence, the ultimate robot novel. The novel opens at a brilliantly complex moment of crisis built around a situation no doubt familiar to many artificial intelligence AI researchers: the question of funding. A small lab in a little heard-of university in a near future where everything has been automated, from the grading of university papers to police detection, has been receiving financial support from NASA for an AI research project. Only it turns out that the whole funding setup has been a scam designed to line the pockets of a NASA employee who commits suicide on being exposed. Nevertheless, the academics have made breathtakingly exciting progress with the research and have created Roderick, a learning system described by one character as this artificial intelligence. "He's alive," insists one of the researchers to his colleague. "Roderick's alive. I know he's nothing, not even a body, just content-addressable memory. I could erase him in a minute, but he's alive. He's as real as I am. He's realer. I'm just one of his thoughts." The research team is now in the unenviable position of having to appeal to the university's Emergency Finance Committee in order to continue with the research, but not all the committee members are persuaded by the value of their work. Rogers, a sociologist on the committee, visits the robotics lab to see what it is all about, but is disappointed by what he finds. "A lot of computers and screens and things. I could see those anywhere. And what are they supposed to mean to a layman? I expected, I don't know." He arrives with preconceptions about what he would find. Preconceptions easily deduced by the AI researcher Fong. "You wanted a steel man with eyes lighting up?" "Yes, master. That kind of robot." "Listen, Roderick's not like that. He doesn't even have a body. Not yet. He's a learning system. A learning system isn't a thing. Maybe we shouldn't even call him a robot. He's like a mind. I guess you could call him an artificial mind." Rogers scoffs at the esoteric nature of Fong's claim, and at the absence of the embodied AI he is expecting to see. "Am I supposed to tell the committee I came to see the machine, and all you could show me was the ghost?" But it turns out Rogers is less interested in the artificial mind than he is in the mind of the researcher, quizzing Fong about this Frankenstein goal and whether he has ever considered the social impact of your work. Roderick is laden with references to the AI narratives that have preceded it, from Kurt Vonnegut's dystopia of automation, Player Piano, to the myth of Francis Bacon's Brazen Head, to Albertus Magnus Automaton, to the prophet Jeremiah and his son making the first golem. Dr. Jane Hanna, an anthropologist on the Emergency Finance Committee, evidences a detailed knowledge of AI narratives across the globe. In fact, she turns to these traditions in order to try to understand the desires behind the aspiration to create intelligent machines, and to decide whether she should approve funding the continued development of one at her university. Maybe the Blackfeet boy Kutoyis cooked to life in a cooking pot. But isn't that the point? Aren't they always fodder for our desires? Take Pumayaton, for instance, going to bed with his ivory creation. Take Hephaestus, then. Those golden girls he made who could talk, help him forge, who knows what else. Or Daedalus, not just the statues that guarded the labyrinth, but the dolls he made for the daughters of Cocalus, you see. Love, work, conversation, guard duty, baby, plaything. Of course they use them to replace people. Isn't that the point? And in Boeotia, the little Daedala, the procession where they carried an oaken bride to the river, much like the Argeoi in Rome, the puppets the Vestal virgins threw into the Tiber to purge the demons. Disease, probably, just as the ewe made clay figures to draw off the spirit of the smallpox, so did the Baganda. They buried the figures under roads, and the first person who passed by picked up the sickness. In Borneo, they drew sickness into wooden images. So did the Dayaks. Of course, the Chinese mostly made toys, a jade automaton in the 4th century, but much earlier even the first Han Emperor had a little mechanical orchestra. But the Japanese, Prince Kaya was it? Yes, made a wooden figure that held a big bowl. It helped the people water their rice paddies during the drought. Certainly more practical than the Chinese or even the Pythagoreans with their steam-driven wooden pigeon. Hardly counts even if they did mean it to carry souls up to... But no, we have to make do with the rest, and of course the golem stories and how claymen fashioned by the archangel... There were the teraphim, of course, but no one knows their function. But the real question is, what do we want this robot for? Is it to be a bronze Talos grinning as he clasps people in his red-hot metal embrace? Or an ivory Galatea with limbs so cunningly jointed? Sladek's novel understands the tradition it lies within. That is, a transhistorical, transcultural, imaginative history of intelligent machines. These imaginings occur in a diverse range of narrative forms, in myths, legends, apocryphal stories, rumors, fiction, and nonfiction, particularly of the more speculative kind. They have existed centuries prior to the origin of the modern scientific field, which might most simply be located in 1956 at the Dartmouth Summer Research Project on Artificial Intelligence, the term AI having been coined the year prior. The term is now used to refer to a heterogeneous network of technologies, including machine learning, natural language processing, expert systems, deep learning, computer vision, and robotics, which have in common the automation of functions of the human brain. However, imaginings of intelligent machines have employed a range of other terms, including automaton, antiquity, android, robot, and cyborg. The chapters in this book engage with AI in its broadest sense, one that encompasses all of the aforementioned terms. That is, any machine that is imagined as intelligent. The exploration of AI narratives by Dr. Hannah in Roderick covers imaginings from the literature, mythology, and folklore of Native America, ancient Greece, classical Rome, Uganda, Ghana, Borneo, China, Japan, Judaism, and Christianity. The chapters in this book focus on narratives that form part of the Anglophone Western tradition. These include works written in English and works in other languages that have had a strong influence on this narrative tradition. The chapters therefore cover a historical period beginning with the automata of the Iliad, the oldest narrative of intelligent machines in this tradition, written around 800 BCE, to the present. The book presents this history of imaginative thinking about intelligent machines in two parts. The chapters in Part 1 cover the long history of imaginings of AI from antiquity to modernity. Each chapter in this part focuses on a specific historical period: antiquity, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, the 18th century, the 19th century, and the modernist period. Together, they explore the prehistory of key concerns of contemporary AI discourse, including the nature of mind, the imbrication of AI and power, the duality of our fascination with and yet ambivalence about AI, the rights and remuneration of workers, both human and artificial, the relation between artificial voice and intelligence, creativity, and technophobia. Part 2 takes up the historical account in the modern period, Karel Čapek's 1921 play RUR, from which derives the term robot, serving as the hinge between the two parts. The chapters in Part 2 focus on the 20th and 21st centuries, in which a greater density of narratives emerges alongside rapid developments in AI technology. The chapters in this part are organized thematically, with each chapter driven primarily by a focus on imaginative explorations of specific effects and consequences of AI technologies. These include the dehumanizing effects of humanizing machines, the consequences of automation and mechanization for society, the cultural assumptions embedded in the anthropomorphization of machines, the importance of understanding AI as a distributed phenomenon, the human drivers behind the desire for technologically enabled immortality, the interaction of AI with the sovereign governance game that defines modern rule, the relationship between imaginative representations of female robots and AIs, and the perception of real-world sex robot technology, and the fear of losing control of AI technologies. This book covers many of the touchstone narratives that might be most familiar to listeners, including Isaac Asimov's robot stories and The Terminator, but it also aims to draw attention to less well-known texts, such as Roderick, that make an important contribution to the rich imaginative history of intelligent machines. After her exploration of AI narratives, Dr. Hannah comes to a conclusion regarding how she will vote at the Emergency Finance Committee. As you see, she concludes, I've been turning the problem over, consulting the old stories, and I've decided to vote against this robot. For Dr. Hannah, AI narratives offer complex explorations of the social, ethical, political, and philosophical consequences of AI, explorations that inform her decision-making about whether or not to fund contemporary scientific research. Many of the chapters in this book support this position, exploring how AI narratives have addressed and offer sophisticated thinking about some of the legitimate concerns that AI technologies now raise. But AI narratives are not universally viewed in this way. A counter-narrative is found in Roderick in the form of Dr. Hannah's colleague, Dr. Helen Boag. Her position cuts through the ancient myths and the expectations they create, ones she perceives to be often misaligned with the technology itself. Really, isn't the computer more or less an overgrown adding machine? A tool, in other words. Useful, of course, but only in the hands of human beings. I feel the role of the computer in our age has been somewhat exaggerated, don't you? Other chapters in this book engage with the challenges posed by, primarily, dominant AI narratives. These engage with a wider landscape in which prevalent AI narratives are mistrusted or criticized, for example, for their extremism, utopian or dystopian, or for their misrepresentation of current technology, for instance in their tendency to focus on anthropomorphic representations. In the next section of this introduction, we want to survey that wider landscape of contemporary views about prevalent AI narratives, their functions and effects, as well as the impacts they have, in order to map one of the terrains into which we hope this book will intervene. 0.2. The Impact of Narratives. Sheila Jasanoff's concept of socio-technical imaginaries provides a dominant paradigm for understanding the relationship between technology and the social order. Jasanoff defines these as the collectively held, institutionally stabilized, and publicly performed visions of desirable futures, animated by shared understandings of forms of social life and social order attainable through and supportive of advances in science and technology. Absent from this theorization, however, is an explicit account of the important role narratives play, both fictional and non-fictional, as fundamental animators of socio-technical imaginaries. This neglect is at odds with Jasanoff's use of science fiction narratives, for instance, to introduce her theory, and her acknowledgement that science fiction narratives already provide an established site of investigation of socio-technical imaginaries, long prior, in fact, to the invention of the term. Science fiction already situates technologies within integrated material, moral, and social landscapes in such abundance. The work of this book contributes to establishing the importance of narratives as constituent parts of any socio-technical imaginary. Attention to narratives also highlights relationships between society, technology, and the imaginary that are not included in Jasanoff's definition. For instance, visions that are not collectively held, ones that destabilize institutions, and subaltern narratives. Jasanoff acknowledges that socio-technical imaginaries encompass both positive and negative imaginings, but only in service of the dominant vision. Foregrounding narratives therefore plays a role in challenging the aspirational and normative dimension of Jasanoff's concept, inviting consideration of a much wider range of visions. Narratives of intelligent machines matter because they form the backdrop against which AI systems are being developed, and against which these developments are interpreted and assessed. Those who are engaged with AI, either as researchers or regulators, are therefore rightfully concerned, for instance, about the fact that the dominant contemporary imaginings of AI, primarily those of Hollywood cinema and popular news coverage, are often out of kilter with the present state of the technology. The UK House of Lords Select Committee on Artificial Intelligence opens the second chapter of their 2018 report, AI in the UK, Ready, Willing, and Able, with a sharp critique of prevalent AI narratives. The representation of artificial intelligence in popular culture is light years away from the often more complex and mundane reality. Based on representations in popular culture and the media, the non-specialist would be forgiven for picturing AI as a humanoid robot, with or without murderous intentions, or at the very least a highly intelligent, disembodied voice, able to assist seamlessly with a range of tasks. The Select Committee report continues by observing that many AI researchers were concerned that the public were being presented with overly negative or outlandish depictions of AI, and that this could trigger a public backlash which could make their work more difficult. This book contributes to an emerging body of work that goes beyond hype and horror by exploring the more complex ways in which narratives of AI could have significant impact. For instance, the narratives with which AI researchers themselves engage can influence their career choice, research focus, community formation, social and ethical thinking, and science communication. Within these categories, Dillon and Schaefer-Goddard identify that further investigation is needed into the way in which AI narratives might influence who goes into the field. Scholars such as Allison Adam have been considering for over 2 decades how masculinity is inscribed into the way AI is conceived, and how this might interplay with a culture in the computing world that is hostile to women. Future research might consider, for instance, whether the consistent portrayal of fictional AI developers as men, from Hephaestus to Metropolis's Rotvong to Robert Ford of the Westworld TV series, makes women feel that this role is not for them. This question of who is in the room or who is in the lab impacts which systems are developed, how, and for whom. The dominance of anthropomorphic portrayals of AI also exacerbates the tense relationship between the technology and issues of equality and diversity. Anthropomorphic machines, from fictional androids like the hosts of Westworld to the human voices of virtual personal assistants, are mirrors to our societies, perpetuating existing biases and exclusions. They reflect and so reinforce prevalent cultural narratives of different groups' allotted role and worth, delineating further who counts as fully human. Extending work on AI narratives to social justice issues around race and ethnicity is crucial. Further research here might consider, for instance, whether stock images of AI as Caucasian male humanoid robots distort views of who AI is for and whose jobs will be impacted by this technology, obscuring the potential effect on disadvantaged communities. In order to understand what kinds of technologies are being developed, those outside the professional AI field rely on narratives that mediate between the technology world and the public sphere. Narratives can therefore strongly influence public acceptance and uptake of AI systems, and a significant amount of science popularization has this goal explicitly in mind. The Select Committee report notes that the role of AI narratives as an intermediary between research and the public was a concern raised by AI researchers, who told the committee that the public have an unduly negative view of AI and its implications, which in their view had largely been created by Hollywood depictions and sensationalist, inaccurate media reporting. This view is supported by Dillon and Schaefer-Goddard's findings, who argue that such stories have a strong influence on the researcher's science communication activity. Researchers often need to argue against the pictures they paint, but can also use this as an incentive and a springboard to paint more positive, or at least realistic pictures of AI-influenced futures. They found that AI researchers expressed a strong desire for more sophisticated stories about AI, which would be of benefit to the research community and public discourse, as well as to literary and cinematic quality and production. Many of the chapters in this book identify such stories, encouraging attention to them in contrast to the narratives that currently dominate. Prevalent narratives are, of course, not just those of the popular media and the press. Large corporations such as Microsoft and Google invest significant resources in developing ethics principles and other narratives aimed at fostering public acceptance of AI. Whether this technology is adopted has implications far beyond these companies' bottom lines. Use of AI in healthcare, for instance, will impact the advancement of the medical field and individual well-being and mortality rates. At the same time, these technologies pose significant concerns regarding privacy, social justice, workers' rights, democracy, and more. In this context, AI narratives have played and will continue to play a crucial role in determining the future of AI implementation. By influencing the perceptions of policymakers and by steering public concerns, narratives also affect the regulation of AI systems. For example, there is ongoing debate about the ways narratives influence public policy on highly advanced or superintelligent AI. On the one hand, there are those who argue that current real-world risks are being obscured by Terminator-style stories. The Select Committee report notes that prevalent AI narratives were concentrating attention on threats which are still remote, such as the possibility of superintelligent artificial general intelligence, while distracting attention away from more immediate risks and problems. In contrast, there is the potential for those who oppose restraints on the development of superintelligent AI to propagate narratives skeptical of its capacities, so that policymakers see no need for regulation. Many authors and scholars consciously use narratives to explore the possibilities for a future with intelligent machines and disrupt existing tropes. Imaginative thinking about AI can probe both dystopian and utopian scenarios, showing flaws in overly unidirectional thinking and anticipating consequences before they affect the lives of millions of people. Asimov, for instance, developed his robot stories in response to a plethora of science fiction works in the 1920s and 30s that presented, in his view, unhelpful depictions of robots as either extremely menacing or extremely pathetic characters. Currently, initiatives around the world are producing a growing body of work, especially science fiction, that is commissioned with a specific mandate to explore the impact of particular technologies, or to imagine how current technologies can be developed to create a utopian future. At the same time, the field of futures studies uses narratives to explore the consequences of specific decisions in policymaking and scientific development. Their scenarios are intended to be realistic forecasts, directing the focus of AI ethics research. The way AI is portrayed is therefore a social, ethical, and political issue. Through shaping the technical field, the acceptance of the resulting technology and its regulation, and through encoding normative socio-political assumptions, these portrayals have far-reaching implications. It is therefore essential that prevalent narratives be critically examined, and that they be contested by the privileging of more sophisticated and complex narratives of AI, both fictional and non-fictional. These more complex stories can be and are being newly invented, but this book draws attention to the extensive history of imaginative thinking about intelligent machines upon which they might build and by which contemporary thinking about AI should be informed. This book looks to past imaginings of the future and of alternate realities in order to inform present thinking about AI. 0.3 Chapter Guide. Philosopher Daniel Dennett offers one illustration of the impact of AI narratives on the scientific field. In 1997, Dennett wrote an 8-page fan letter to Richard Powers after reading Galatea 2.2. Explaining his actions later, Dennett observes of Powers's novel, "His representation of AI is wonderful. It is remarkable how this very interested bystander has managed to cantilever his understanding of the field out over the abyss of confusion and even throw some pioneering light on topics I thought I understood before." For Dennett, Powers's novel serves to illuminate the field. What particularly excited me, he continues, was how Powers had managed to find brilliant ways of conveying hard-to-comprehend details of the field, details people in the field were themselves having trouble getting clear about. Dennett understands Powers's novel as a contribution to scientific research and knowledge. The novel, he says, is an excellent genre for pushing the scientific imagination into new places. This is because it challenges personal styles of thinking, and a style is roughly a kit of partially disabling thinking habits. Dennett is keen to caveat this acknowledgement of the power of novels, however, declaring that you have to be a powerful thinker to pull off the trick. That's why most science fiction doesn't repay the attention of scientists. He even goes so far as to suggest that we need a new name for the rare novels like Galatea 2.2 that manage to make a contribution to the scientific imagination. No new name is needed, however, and Galatea 2.2 is not so rare a contribution as Dennett seems to think. The chapters in this book explore a wide range of AI narratives and the many roles they play, not only in extending the scientific imagination, but the ethical, political, and social imagination as well. Part 1 opens with a chapter on the very earliest references to intelligent machines. Through close analysis of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, Genevieve Lively and Sam Thomas trace the various gradations of weak to strong machine intelligence that these ancient poems describe, and explore the ancient mind models that they assume. They conclude that the Homeric mind model, which sees both humans and machines possessing programmable thoughts, phrenes, and minds, nous, helps to explain why Homer is part of our own cultural AI programming. They propose that Homer's ancient tales of intelligent machines have established a program for us to follow in the retelling and rescripting of our present and future AI narratives. Part 1 then moves from antiquity to the long medieval period. First, E.R. Truitt explores the imagination of objects we might recognize as AI, from artificial servants to elaborate optical devices, from augmented human perception to sentient machines. She argues that throughout this era, AI appears in imaginative contexts to gain, consolidate, and exercise power. It does so in ways remarkably recognizable from a
Sample complete. Ready to continue?